faithfully conveying value, interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'm going to interpret this book for you. The First Step to Good Communication, subtitled Learning to Listen. Sometimes, good communication is just too hard. You enthusiastically offer suggestions to a colleague, but they respond coldly, even telling you to mind your own business. Even though you deeply care about your partner, they always complain you're self-absorbed, accidentally killing conversations, like you don't know how to talk. Often, it's not that we can't express ourselves, but that we don't know how to listen. Listening requires hearing hidden meanings in others' words. But frequently, we only catch the literal meaning. So how can we become good listeners who understand those hidden meanings? The first step to good communication. This book holds your answer. Author Michael Nichols is a psychology professor at William and Mary, specializing in marital therapy with 30-plus years of clinical experience. This clinical work gave Nichols unique insights into listening. In this book, Nichols shares listening principles to resolve conflicts and build harmonious relationships. It became an instant Amazon bestseller in communication, selling over 120,000 copies. Readers credit it with transforming their personal and professional relationships. I'll unpack the book's essence in 3 parts. First, why listening matters so much, and what exactly is it? Prevents us from listening? Second, how to become a good listener. Third, listening strategies across different relationships. All right, let's dive into part 1. How vital is listening? What blocks us? To be good listeners, we must recognize what hinders listening. First, understand how crucial being heard is. It fulfills our need for respect and recognition, shaping our sense of self. When no one listens, we can't share thoughts or feelings, breeding rejection and frustration. A good listener doesn't just hear words, they help speakers untangle their thoughts. Thoughts and feelings that were kind of blurry. Folks who get listened to and acknowledged feel more confident, have better self-esteem, and build a self that's secure and valued. They're more open to sharing their ideas and also better at listening to and accepting others. Next up, for listeners, listening helps bridge that gap between people, and it's the bedrock of good communication. Oh, a lot of info in chats is hidden. If folks see things differently, misunderstandings pop up easy. Listening helps us really get others and connect better with them. Listening is way more crucial than we think, and way tougher too. So, what's really blocking us from listening well? The author lays out 3 hurdles: too much self-focus, jumping to conclusions, and emotional reactions. All right, first hurdle, excessive self-focus that's about the listener. Focusing on themselves, always itching to talk, not genuinely into the speaker or their topic. Like cutting others off before they're done, or jumping in with, "Oh, have you heard about that thing?" Yeah, me too, I've handled it just like that before. Excessive self-focus. Another common one is judging what they're thinking or feeling. Like, why be upset? Don't feel that way. We've all been there. If we're into what they're saying, it's way easier to stay focused. But a lot of times what they're talking about is just plain boring to us. Then, to not drift off or butt in, we got to use some willpower to really pay attention. The second hurdle is jumping to conclusions. Our own biases filter what we hear, guess intentions, and cause misunderstandings. These biases come partly from past impressions. We judge them based on what they've done before. Say, a pal who's always whining. Soon as they speak, folks tune out. Or a buddy who's always hitting you up for cash. If they ping you on WeChat, you're already on guard. On the flip side, our own past experiences can lead to jumping to conclusions too. This early experience mainly refers to our interactions with parents. How we relate to others often stems from family patterns. For instance, there was this husband who'd avoid conversations whenever his wife asked him to do something. He later realized his childhood mom was hypercritical, always blaming him, so he'd instinctively retreat at requests. Even though his wife wasn't his mom, he still felt her requests were criticisms. So with this bias, he refused to listen. Other times we can't listen because we're triggered. That's the third obstacle. Emotional reactions. It means the speaker's words hit our wounds, resentment or fear, making us overreact emotionally. Two main triggers. First, the speaker's tone and emotion. When they speak sharply or vent emotionally, listeners feel attacked, triggering fight or flight, like a wife complaining her husband does no chores while she does everything. Her words speed up, growing more intense. Her hands wave midair, showing frustration.
The husband feels attacked and counters. You did everything, and I did nothing.
Who earns money here?
The second trigger is the listener's emotional memories. They make us hypersensitive to certain expressions or words. The wife casually says, "You're so dumb," and he explodes disproportionately. Emotionally, he's reliving childhood mockery from parents. Without that memory, her "you're so dumb" wouldn't cause such rage. Okay, that concludes part one, listening. It matters because it fulfills our need for respect and recognition, builds a resilient self, and bridges human connections. Three obstacles hinder listening: excessive self-focus, preconceived expectations, and emotional reactions. So, how do we break through these barriers to become good listeners? That's our focus in part two. The author offers 3 listening techniques: releasing self-focus, building empathy, and diffusing emotional reactions. First technique: release self and focus on others. It means curbing our urge to speak, not interrupting or judging, putting full attention on the speaker so they can express thoughts and feelings. While listening, tune into hidden thoughts and feelings in their words. Often communication isn't direct. When a coworker asks, "Are you hot?" what they really mean might be, "I'm hot. Can we lower the AC?" When a friend says, "Let's grab lunch," they might be hungry, want to see you, or it's an excuse to avoid dinner. Life experience helps catch these hidden meanings, but knowing them well matters more. When unsure, ask open-ended questions to encourage detailed sharing. For example, "You said you hate shopping with me. Can you tell me exactly why?" Or, "Sounds like you're unhappy about this. Could you specify what bothers you?" Plus, show them we've understood. The book introduces reflective listening. Reflective listening means restating their key points in your words, then asking confirmation. For instance, "You feel you always initiate dates, doubting I want to be with you. So, in this relationship, you feel insecure. Am I getting that right?" Or, "You dislike eating out because our restaurant picks are too heavy. You think it's unhealthy." When accurate, they feel understood. When off, encourage more explanation. The core isn't perfect restating. It's showing we're trying hard to understand. As mentioned earlier, focusing on speakers takes willpower. What if we're too tired or in a bad mood to focus on them? Why not honestly tell them? Like, "I really can't focus right now. Can we talk after dinner?" Or, "I've got something urgent. Can I say it first?" Once it's off my chest, I'll listen properly. The second skill, building empathy, understanding others' feelings from their perspective. So how do we build empathy while listening? First, drop assumptions. Jumping to conclusions makes us guess what they'll say, blocking real understanding. So we got to let go of assumptions and hear them out fully. For example, a wife comes home late. She walks in saying, "So sorry I'm late." The husband cuts in, "No worries, the kids and I made noodles. Dinner's ready." She appreciates dinner but feels hurt. She wanted to explain she got last-minute work before leaving. But the husband assumed she was apologizing and interrupted. If he'd dropped assumptions and let her finish, he'd have understood her true feelings. Building empathy also requires sensitivity to communication styles, specifically noticing differences, whether someone's direct or subtle, detailed or brief, fast or slow, in speech. Everyone has preferences, like Rick prefers concise talk and hates rambling, while Shelley loves details. When Rick asked Shelley to get to the point, she thinks he's uninterested. Shelley thinks this because she's insensitive to Rick's communication style. Likewise, Rick demanding brevity shows he's insensitive too. Both impose their standards. So how to stay sensitive? It takes openness to accept how others speak. Maybe you're used to expressing your needs directly, thinking that's being honest. That's your communication style, but you also need to allow others to speak indirectly, because to them, that's more polite. Additionally, anxiety can affect our sensitivity. This anxiety comes from real or imagined pressure. Generally, we think dominant people control relationships, so the less dominant side is often less willing to listen. For example, if a husband feels his wife makes all the decisions at home, he'll resist discussing things with her. With that said, we've covered releasing self-focus and building empathy. Finally, let's talk about the third listening skill: defusing emotional reactions. When we're overly emotional, we tend to argue, attack, or overreact, which only makes things worse. The most direct way to diffuse emotional reactions is to feel and accept our emotions. Emotions are essentially energy in the body. Every emotion comes with physiological arousal. That means when we experience an emotion, our body reacts. To channel this energy, we need to feel the emotion physically, letting it flow and find an outlet. At this point, we need to quiet the mind and focus on our body's sensations. See how the emotion manifests, where it's strongest, and what it feels like. For instance, when nervous, notice the racing heart and sweaty palms. When sad, feel the tightness in the throat and chest muscles. Under stress, sense the tension in the neck and shoulders. Of course, emotional arousal has common patterns, but there are individual differences. For example, some get headaches when nervous, others get diarrhea. After feeling these emotions, accept them. Don't fight them. There's no good or bad. Every emotion has a purpose, like fear heightening our alertness to danger. Anger protects our boundaries from being violated. Sadness often comes from loss, and experiencing loss helps us reflect deeper. We need to allow ourselves these emotions and then express our feelings early on. You can say, "What you just said made me uncomfortable," or "I'm really angry right now, let me calm down."
Say it sooner.
It's easier to lower your tone and avoid accusatory language, preventing emotional reactions from hurting others. It also helps them understand your emotional state, adjust the conversation, and diffuse emotional reactions. Another method: hear them out and focus on the core issue. For example, the husband says, "I wish we didn't eat fish every week." The wife gets angry, complaining how picky he is. The husband is shocked. He never criticized her cooking, he just dislikes fish. If she'd heard him out and focused on the fish issue, instead of emotionalizing it, the reaction would have dissolved naturally. All right, that wraps part 2. We've covered 3 listening techniques. First, release self-focus. Hear hidden thoughts and feelings and show understanding. Second, build empathy. Drop assumptions and stay sensitive to communication styles. Third, diffuse emotional reactions. Feel and accept emotions. Focus on the core issue. With these universal skills, let's explore part 3. Listening strategies across relationships. We'll focus on 3 relationships: partners, parents, children, and friends. First, partner listening. No matter how in love, partners are individuals raised differently with unique perspectives. Their key task is mutual adjustment for compatibility. This ranges from big decisions like kids or where to live to small ones like dinner or TV channels. Adjustment isn't either or, but balancing tolerance and compromise while respecting differences. Say the wife's an early sleeper, but the husband's a night owl. She hears he thinks clearest when writing late at night. He learns she needs 8 hours to function well. So she stays up with him when next day's light. He sleeps early with her when not writing. Here, listening to each other's needs is adjustment's foundation. Of course, compatibility doesn't mean becoming identical people, because some issues may never reach consensus. At this point, partners must learn to accept each other's unchangeable aspects without drifting apart. But sometimes when they don't meet our requests, we can't help complaining or nagging. Yet the more we complain and nag, the less likely they are to cooperate. Like when a wife repeatedly asks her husband to clean the bathroom after use, but he ignores it. For such cases, the author suggests adjusting expression and listening, reduce demands and reminders to avoid becoming a nag. Avoid being disliked the moment you speak. When making requests,
Avoid negative accusations.
Instead of why you never clean after using the bathroom, make positive specific requests so they know exactly what to do. Now,
After requests, lighten the mood by asking their thoughts. Express it like this.
to prevent bacteria, could you wipe the floor after showering? What do you think? Also, after requesting, listen to their perspective. Maybe the husband doesn't clean immediately because he assumes his wife will use it next, avoiding double cleaning. Hearing this, the wife might find it reasonable and accept his approach. Instead of complaining, the author urges self-reflection. Examine your role in conflicts and initiate change first. When blaming them for never caring, examine your own caring behavior. If you dislike being touched somewhere, consider whether you've communicated this boundary. That concludes partners. Next, parent-child listening. Many parents try to control and reshape children to their will.
But children are independent individuals with their own thoughts.
To build cooperative relationships, parents must first respect and accept their children's ideas and feelings. Maybe, some parents complain their kids won't talk to them. From the kids' view, if they expect criticism or questioning from their parents or advice they're not willing to open up, how accepting parents are sets how open the kid gets.
The key fix? Parents gotta treat kids as thinking individuals. Talk equally, respect their thoughts and feelings.
Lots of parents find kids throwing fits all the time. It's tough to deal with. The author thinks kids have good reasons to act out. They can't express themselves maturely, so they use tantrums to get noticed. If parents pause and focus, asking what's on your mind, the acting out usually stops. When it blows up into a full tantrum, the author says don't argue back or keep stating your position. Like, I said no, and that's that. Telling the kid to chill out at this stage is pretty much useless. What you gotta do is listen first and validate their feelings. Like, you could say, oh, you're really mad right now, which can calm them down and stop the fit. On top of that, for a healthy parent-kid bond, you've got to deal with family triangulation. When things get tense between two folks at home, a third person often jumps in, willingly or not, to shift the conflict. Say, a wife's bugged that her husband leaves the bathroom messy, so she gripes to the kid about him. Or the wife tells the kid, no TV during meals. The kid throws a fit, and the husband blames the wife for being too strict. This might seem to ease the conflict, but it just hides the issue and messes up listening between the actual folks involved. The author says don't use a third person for indirect chats. Push for direct talk between the people involved. That helps them understand each other better and cuts down on mix-ups. If the husband messes up the bathroom a lot, the wife should talk straight to him, not whine to the kid. Plus, a lot of triangulation comes from unresolved couple problems that get dumped on the kid. The author thinks kids' misbehavior roots from parents not supporting each other. On certain issues, parents' attitudes become polarized. One too strict, the other too lenient. So in parenting, they must form a united front through agreement. For example, agree first on rules like TV during meals, then consistently enforce them. Now, moving from partners and kids to friends, no matter how close, maintain autonomy. Learn to accept them as they are, not as we wish them to be.
Forcing advice is toxic among friends. Consider this case.
Maggie dated a guy with flaws and told Liz. Liz harshly criticized him, insisting Maggie dump him immediately. Liz's advice overwhelmed Maggie. Soon, Maggie stopped discussing her boyfriend with Liz. Maggie was just venting. She still loved him. Her own complaints were fine, but Liz's judgmental advice felt intrusive. Advice often implies criticism. Even well-intended, it can feel like an attack.
If offering advice, first ask.
Would you like my thoughts on this? Also, let them freely accept or reject your suggestion. We want friends happy, but must respect their choices, even if we disagree. Okay, that concludes part 3, listening strategies across relationships. For partners, mutual adjustment, respecting differences, self-reflection first. For parents, release control, accept children's feelings, handle family triangulation. For friends, accept authenticity, avoid forced advice, true communication. That covers most of the first step to good communication.
Let's recap. Listening fulfills our need for respect, builds resilience, and bridges human connections.
However, excessive self-focus, preconceived expectations, and emotional reactions, these three factors hinder our listening to others. To tackle these obstacles, we can learn to release self-focus and strive to understand the speaker's hidden thoughts and feelings. And we can also drop assumptions, build empathy, and think from the other's perspective. Finally, we must learn to feel and accept emotions, focusing on the core issue to diffuse emotional reactions. Moreover, listening has unique strategies in different interpersonal relationships. The core for partners is mutual adjustment, respect differences, self-reflect first in problems, and make changes. The core for parents is letting go of control, respecting and accepting children's ideas and feelings, and properly handling family triangulation. The core for friends is accepting them as they are, avoiding forced advice, as relationships are interactive. Everyone wants to be heard. When we listen attentively, that kindness returns to us. Truly good communication. This concludes the interpretation of the first step. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.